I heard an old story, how a Savior came from glory, how he gave his life on Calvary to save a wretch like me. Wait a second. I think I got that. Yeah, I think I'll stick with E. How you guys doing? Y'all know this song? Do you know this song? It's one of my favorites. And I'll tell you why after these brief messages. I heard an old story, how a Savior came from glory, how he gave his life on Calvary to save a wretch like me. I heard about his groaning, of his precious blood's atoning, and I repented of my sins and won the victory. Oh, victory in Jesus, my Savior forever. He sought me and bought me with his redeeming blood. He loved me ere I knew him, and all my love is to him. He plunged me to victory beneath the cleansing flood. Well, I heard about his healing, of his cleansing power revealing, how he made the lame to walk again and caused the blind to see. And then I cried, dear Jesus, come and heal my broken spirit. And somehow Jesus came and brought to me the victory. Oh, victory in Jesus, my Savior forever. He sought me and bought me with his redeeming blood. Oh, he loved me ere I knew him, and all my love is due him. He plunged me to victory beneath the cleansing flood. Well, I heard about a mansion he has built for me in glory, and I heard about the streets of gold beyond the crystal sea, about the angels singing and the old redemption story. And some sweet day I'll sing up there the song of victory. Oh, victory in Jesus, my Savior forever. He sought me and bought me with his redeeming blood. He loved me ere I knew him, and all my love is to him. He plunged me to victory beneath the cleansing flood. Now, I'll tell you why I love that song. When I was a kid, my grandmother was much beloved to me. And my grandmother, Green, Marion Green, she was a wonderful, vivacious, encouraging woman. She would often speak and then kind of go, oh, shouldn't have said that, And she would just encourage people, and she wasn't afraid of people, and she was just a born encourager, extrovert, and as I got older, we stayed very close. She encouraged me in a lot of my endeavors and things that I was doing, and we went to the same church together. And she said, she would always say, at my funeral, victory in Jesus. That's the song I want them to sing. We are going to have a party because I am already going to be up there. And I'll be looking down and can't wait for you all to join me, I'm sure, at that point. And so I remember eventually she passed away. man, let me think. 14 years ago. 15 years ago. 15 years ago, right around Christmas, just after Christmas. And, you know, I was around right at the end there, saying goodbye to her, holding her hand. And we told her we were going to sing it. And we did. We had a party at the church. We sang that song like we'd never sung it before for our beloved grandma. And she had 5 children and many grandchildren. And now she has many, many great-grandchildren who she'll get to meet one day. But that song has always been one of those uplifting, encouraging, and beautiful songs. But it actually has a special meaning to me because it reminds me of my Grandma Green. And boy, I love that woman. She had a mango tree in her backyard. And Grandpa was allergic to the skins of mangoes. Now, if you have allergies to poison ivy, you may be familiar with this. Same, Anacardiaceae family there. And so my grandpa could not touch the sap on the outside of the mango, but he could eat mangoes. But Grandma had to peel them all first. So she would peel, he would go and carefully grab all these mangoes with gloves on or something. I remember he did not handle them. But he would gather them, and she would, when the mangoes were in season, tons of mangoes would fall. These great big sweet ones like you only get in tropical climates, South Florida. And she would slice them all up and put them into bags in the freezer. And we would have mangoes all through the year. And Grandpa would always eat. He would take them out and let them half thaw and then eat them. And they were like, they had the ice crystals in them. And they were like this delicious dessert, particularly in hot, sunny South Florida. When you really just wish that you had mangoes, but mango season is gone. Grandma had a freezer packed with frozen, delicious, incredible mangoes. That tree just kept going on and on and on. Bad, sandy soil, beautiful mangoes, unbelievable mangoes. And, so my grandma, she encouraged my gardening too, but she always told me she killed everything. She killed everything that she planted, but she encouraged my gardening. She didn't kill that mango tree, though. Lauren says, that's me. I can't pick or peel them, so my husband has to. Yeah, it is too bad. Mangoes are one of the few fruits I'm not allergic to. I'm allergic to a lot of temperate fruits, but very few tropicals. Carolyn, thank you very much for the super chat. Much appreciated. So this evening, we are going to talk about 8 amazing vegetables for next year's garden. Now, I've been encouraging people to grow their own food for a very long time. I have my website is called The Survival Gardener, thesurvivalgardener.com. And that is because having food in the ground is a safety net against difficult or tough times. I believe in owning tangible assets, and I believe that learning and knowing how to grow food is very important. And that in difficult or strange or uncertain times, there is a lot of peace that comes with being able to dig up a bunch of sweet potatoes or anything else. But there's just a certain joy also that comes from going out and gardening when you're stressed out and worried what is going to happen. The human mind and heart, I believe, is at its most peaceful when gardening or when being out in nature. But gardening has the additional beauty of nurturing something, growing your own food, having your hands in the soil, nurturing and raising and harvesting. There's a great joy in it. I mean, I could think of few things that are less enjoyable than knowing that you've got to pull an entire row of daikons or dig up a bed of sweet potatoes. I absolutely love doing that. It's like that thrill you get from treasure hunting. I don't know if any of you guys have ever gone metal detecting, but metal detecting is similar because you think every time you dig, it might be something cool. It could be. It's usually a bottle cap or an old nail, but it could be. So I think we were designed to be in a garden. So not only just like, oh my gosh, I have to garden because I don't know what's going to happen next. That's part of it. But the other part of it is once you get out there and your phone is off and you are away from the news, it's you, the garden, the butterflies, the birds, the gentle breeze, the sun rises, the sun sets. It brings you a lot of peace. Especially if you are singing or praying or just thanking God for the different things that he's done for you throughout the week. That is really powerful. Thank you that these things are growing well. Thank you for giving me what you've given me. Thank you for this beautiful day. It will give you a peace that you won't have checking the news, sitting around indoors, working the job, racing around, sitting in traffic. I mean, it's all stressful stuff. I get so stressed out, working a real job in the city and that kind of thing. I love to be out in the country, and it's taken me years to get to the point where, okay, I'm an author, and I can be out in the country, and I can look out, and I can see nature out of the backyard. And it's been a series of God's interventions that, it's happened that way. So, just enjoy being out there in the garden and in nature. And if you start getting stressed out, make yourself a cup of tea and go garden and enjoy it. And grow some fun stuff just for the sake of your soul. Did you see? I mean, you guys saw the preview image that I had there of that sorrel? That is some of the most beautiful Jamaican sorrel. That is hibiscus sabdarifa, and that is one of the vegetables we're going to cover today. Which reminds me, I should get into covering 8 amazing vegetables for next year's garden. And next year isn't that far away. It's only a couple months. And then spring is coming. Spring is coming. So now is the time to be picking out the stuff that you want for the next year. And I've been doing that already. I'm already buying seeds for next year. And the vegetables that I am going to cover are some of my personal favorites. And what I did was, I often cover just, Florida stuff, tropical stuff. Like I'll tell you how much I love growing yams, true yams, Dioscorea species, or I'll wax poetic over the wonders of cassava or malanga, or how much I like pigeon peas as a nitrogen fixer, stuff like that. And I know that I'm leaving some of you guys out. So these are crops that you will be able to grow in just about any garden in a reasonable climate. Now, if you get a freeze at after only 80 days of warm weather in the year or something like that, well, you're not going to be able to grow all of these. But you are going to be able to grow most of them. And I have seen some of these things growing further north than people, would think. And many of them are short annuals that are a lot of fun. So let us start with one of my favorite productive plants of all time, which can take the heat, it can take humidity, it can grow through the summer, but it'll also do just fine in a regular garden. Any place where you can grow beans, you can grow this bean. And this bean is the yard-long bean, also known as the snake bean because it looks like a long snake. Now, those of you, I hope that's coming through clear enough that you can see how crazy long that bean is. That is just a little over 28 inches of bean. Anyway, normal beans. I mean, we had regular green beans for dinner, like green beans purchased from the store. They're like that big, right? Regular green beans. About like that. Your standard, boring green bean. It's not this huge, freaky, awesome bean like these things are. These guys are like, boom, beans. I mean, if you pick 2 of these guys and you chop them up, into regular bean sizes, and you cook them. That's enough. That's a great serving of beans. Cassidy says, I grew yard longs this year, have lots of seeds to replant next year. Yes, I am going to be getting seeds again. They were actually sold out of the green variety when I was looking for them. I have to go hunting again. The green varieties are my favorite, and you can see these are green ones here. I have grown the purple ones as well, but I find that they're less flavorful and more fibrous. The regular green ones, they're not flashy, but for me, they were more productive and had a better flavor than the purple ones by far. I'm not interested in growing the purple ones again. But these guys here, this is just a regular old green variety. And no, they're not that waxy. I mean, they're really just not as good. The purple ones are just not that great. The green ones, though, they have almost a little bit of a nutty flavor to them. You harvest them. You don't have to harvest them all the way. These are pretty long at 28 inches. If you harvest them when they're at like 18 inches to 22 inches or so, that's about right. And they're good. The productivity is incredible. They'll run. They're a vigorous climbing bean, so you really have to have something for them to climb on. You could stick poles in the ground or tie some string up onto your fence. If you have, I had a privacy fence, so I ran strings up onto the privacy fence. It was one of those wood panel fences, and just let them climb up it, and it was amazing. And I have also grown them deliberately. I made hoops out of cattle panels and grew them on that, and that was a lot of fun because you kind of get them overhead. I made pyramids actually. So they just need something to grab on. They will grow like 10 to 12 feet of vine, and after, I'm gonna say it's probably something like 70 days they start blooming. They're a little slower, and they actually start a little slow, and they sprout, and they take a little while to sprout, and they come up, and they look like they're not going to do much, they're not going to do much, and they're not going to do much, and then suddenly they just grab and they go boom, and they fly, and then they just start making beans and beans and beans and beans. And they're one of the few beans that I found that I can just go ahead and replant them even in June or July when it's getting too hot for regular beans to grow, and they will continue to grow, and they will grow. Sometimes they'll produce for a good solid month, particularly if you keep them picked. Now, the downside of these beans, if it could be said to be a downside, is that unlike some varieties of climbing bean, like Kentucky beans or dragon tongue beans, some of these beans, they'll actually make a pretty good dry bean. Like if you wanted to just let a whole bunch of them dry and then make soup from the beans, they'll make a pretty good sized bean. The asparagus bean / snake bean, this guy, it doesn't do that. It is not it's a tiny little skinny bean, and you think, man, is that even a viable seed? When you see them, you're like, those are weeny, especially considering how big they get. They look like the embryo didn't develop properly. But no, they are a fantastically productive bean, but they are a green bean. And if you grew like 10 vines of this stuff, you would have more than enough beans. And if you plant another set of them every few weeks, you can end up with just insane amounts of beans. Very useful. And they're very good for chop them up, blanch them, and freeze them, and you can eat them off and on through the year. And the kids will eat them raw too. They have a very nice flavor. Sometimes they call them asparagus bean because they're supposed to have a slight asparagus flavor, and I guess I could see it a little bit. It's just a little nutty and a little more flavorful than your average bean, I find. I really enjoy them, except for the purple ones, which are like eating beanie cardboard. So, let us look at our next crop. And this one is going to erase me. Bum, 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 bum. Collards, collards, collards. Vegetable number 2 is collards. This gets people think collards are it's kind of this southern thing. And they're generally well known in the South because they take the heat, they take poor soil, You know, they take a licking and keep on kicking. They're easier to grow than cabbages, more vigorous. They're a little bit more wild, and I've even had them last through more than a year and keep growing. Very weird. Like, they just kept getting taller and taller and taller. And actually, you know, there's also one called tree collards, which is a perennial, but some of the collards they've actually gone perennial on me. And you know, lasted a couple of years, almost a couple of years. Very strange plant, but it is, you know, a member of that brassica tribe. And I'll tell you, collards and bacon, you just steam or boil those suckers down, chop those leaves up and boil them down with some bacon and a little bit of salt. Man, that is good eating. They are filling and delicious, and I highly recommend them. If you're, you know, if you like good, rich green flavors and a high nutrient plant, like something that is very good for you, it's got all those good sulfur compounds and everything in it. Collards are excellent, and they take both the frost and the hotter weather. So they are a kind of an all-around. Look, you live in a northern climate, they don't mind. It gets down in the 20s overnight a couple of times. It's not going to kill them. Now it gets down in the teens, they're gone. But upper 20s, no big deal. You could start them before your last expected frost date and put them out there, and they're going to just keep picking them and picking them and picking them. They're so good. Very good. Serene Bean says, I heard collard greens are lower in oxalates than other greens. Yeah, actually the brassicas are generally low in oxalates, but you know, the amaranths and the beets and the spinaches are really high. I don't think anybody should eat at least raw spinach. I would not make spinach smoothies, particularly if you have any kind of problems with kidney stones or any of that kind of stuff. Don't stay away from the spinach. It is, people don't realize, like, we think vegetables are all really good for us, but vegetables, many vegetables don't really want to be eaten. And so they protect themselves with compounds like oxalic acid. And so some of them have these oxalic acid crystals in them, which will actually mess you up, make your throat feel scratchy, make your joints hurt, and it can cause buildups in your system. They're just kind of nasty. So I actually try to grow more low oxalate vegetables if I can. And you know, it's a good point. The brassicas are usually lower. Lauren says, I'm not allowed at family holiday dinners unless I bring my collards. That sounds awesome. With a name like Paulini, that's not like an old Southern name, though. I wonder how did you end up with the collards? I would be interested to know. And in the same kind of zone as collards, but not quite so tolerant of the heat, here's another one I like. These are some turnips I grew maybe 7 years ago or so when I was in North Florida. Turnips. Now, if you've read Jack Broccoli, if you think that I am Jack Broccoli, that I was writing myself into this story as Jack Broccoli, it's not true. Jack Broccoli absolutely loves turnips. I do not. I do not like the flavor of turnips all that much. And it kind of dates back to this time when I decided, you know, I needed a prepper survival crop through the winter to balance out the prepper survival crops that I had through the summer. So, you know, spring and summer, you got your white potatoes coming in. And then I had the sweet potatoes coming in. And then late fall, I often had, cassava coming in. And I had yams coming in, like true yams. And then, well, what am I going to do through the winter? It freezes. What can I grow? What could be a high-calorie survival crop? So, turnips. Turnips. My ancestors lived on turnips. And probably a lot of meat. But turnips you know, that's a good calorie crop. So I grew them, and I grew a whole bunch of them. And man, we had a lot of turnips. Had them in some stir fries, cooked them, roasted them. And you guys have heard this story. Some of you guys have heard this story. I knew that we had too many turnips when one day Rachel decided to make a turnip pie. Like, what is this, sweetheart? It is a turnip pie. I just used the recipe for an apple pie and replaced the apples with turnips. Too many turnips. However, I have never gotten tired of turnip greens. I love turnip greens. Turnip greens are very similar to collard greens. It's just they tend to be a little earlier season. You know, the collard, and they're not usually quite as huge. There are varieties of turnips that you grow just for their greens. Rutabaga is one I'd like to try. I have not grown rutabaga yet. I actually have seeds for it that I haven't planted. But the turnips, I love the way they look. And I loved the greens, but I really got tired of the roots after a while. And now I'm wondering if this is going to change because I'm growing a couple of varieties that are supposed to be quite good. White Globe and White Lady. So they're supposed to be, you know, flavorful and mild. And I'm also growing them with a higher nutrient level. You know, in the soil than I grew them before. Before, I had just thrown down some cow manure and tilled it under and planted turnips. But this time, I've actually got all of this micronutrient stuff going on. And, you know, I trust Steve Solomon on this when he says that the flavor of the vegetables are going to be much better. So we may actually get a decent pie this time. But I'll tell you, I love the way they grow. I like harvesting them. I love how pretty they are. They keep for quite a while. You can stick them in the fridge forever, you know. And I love the greens. And I want that calorie crop to work out. So I'm hoping, you know, it's almost, I don't know, 7 years. 7 years since the pie incident. 8 years maybe. Maybe this time I'll be like turnips. I just love turnips. So... Shashakila says, growing the purple tops here. Purple top turnip. Purple top white globe. That is just the most reliable little thing. You know, turnips, you just scatter the seeds around and kind of just rake them in or whatever and water the area, and turnips grow. They're almost like a weed. And, you know, they're also very good for you. The greens in particular. And, you know, there's got to be a way to like turnips. I'm sure I will like them. You know. Yeah, Doling says, too bad you can't grow more taro in Alabama. I agree. It's pretty borderline here. I could probably grow it, but a little borderline. So on from turnips. I love turnips. Jack Broccoli loves turnips, but I don't love turnips like Jack Broccoli loves turnips. Jack Broccoli actually loves turnips. I just like to grow them and look at them, but I'm not that interested in eating them. But I'm going to try again this year. It may happen. I used to not like okra. Now I love okra. Things change. People change, situations change, and maybe even, by golly, I might eat some turnip pie live on one of these streams and enjoy it for America. This next one, you know what? You guys tell me what this is. Somebody tell me what this is. If you've read my books, you know this one. Somebody tell me what this blooming thing is. Someone tell me Amy K is so close. There you go, Derek's got it. That's not even fair. Derek is not even fair. He's not even a fair human. It is very similar to amaranth. It's actually a very close relative. Got a lot of amaranths here. Yeah, kidney stones are brutal. Now, I understand why you guys would think it's amaranth because it's very, very similar to amaranth. It's a very close cousin to amaranth. It is called Celosia argentea. And because that is one of those things that's hard to look up if you don't know how to spell it, I am putting it into the chat right now. Celosia argentea. Celosia argentea, also known as Lagos spinach. I was first introduced to this one by my friend Josh Jameson over at Hart in Lake Wales, Florida. Yep, Amy says, is that Lagos spinach? Yes, it is. And lamb's quarters, very similar, same family. So this is Celosia argentea, and the interesting thing about this, if you go to an image search and you look up Celosia argentea, you will find some very, very beautiful plants. And you'll recognize it. Look, wait a minute. I saw those things in one of those big trays at Lowe's. Or you might even recognize them. Hey, they planted them out front of our office. It's become a common plant as an ornamental. But a lot of people don't realize it's edible. It's like chaya. I saw chaya, the Mexican tree spinach, sold as a butterfly plant at an event. Actually, somebody told me about it being sold as a butterfly plant, and I asked them about it, and they just called it butterfly plant. That's butterfly plant because it attracts butterflies, but it's actually a really good edible green. So the Celosia argentea, once you have it, it reseeds like crazy. Amy, if you can find it to begin with, you will have it forever because you can. Let me show you those flower heads again. See those flower heads? If you rub your fingers down those flower heads, that you can see how they're turning white. As they grow, they get whiter and whiter like that. And they have the pink tip is where the new growth is growing. It just continues down, and then you can roll those seed heads and just let the seeds fall into your hands, and they're little black shiny seeds. They're beautiful. They look like onyx or obsidian or jet, like just shiny, beautiful, perfect little black flat seeds, like itty bitty shiny black lentils is what the shape of them is. This is Celosia argentea, very close relative of amaranth. And it is, it's a very good green. It's not a good green when it starts to go into bloom like that because the leaves get smaller and smaller. But when it's young and it's growing vigorously, it makes a bunch of larger leaves, like amaranth, and you just chop it halfway down, and you can saute it or steam it or cook it. I don't eat it raw because it's also one of those higher. It's a relative, of spinach as well. So after we've demonized those oxalic acid plants, I bring you another oxalic acid plant. But the Celosia greens, when they first start producing, they have a very nice hearty flavor, and this one is a full-on summer plant. So you've got some of these greens that are more, they can take more cold, like your turnip greens and your collard greens, no problem, right on through. But the Celosia, you're going to want to do this after the last frost date, and if you had them the year before, they often self-seed again. And they have very pretty leaves, purple centers to the leaves, usually with green leaves. And as they grow, the leaves get like that big when they're young and chop them. Now, when they start to just go to seed, it's like the whole plant goes up and leaves get smaller and smaller and smaller, and then it puts out these beautiful flower heads. And at that point, you get all the butterflies and all the beautiful insects coming through, and it's fine. You just plant more here and there. But you get a season where you can just chop half the plant off and take the whole center of it, and it'll branch out and it'll grow again. It'll branch out and grow again, but eventually it's just going to go shoop and try to make a seed head, and then you forget it. Don't worry about it. You can pick individual leaves off it if you care, but by that point there's usually something else to eat. And they do grow very fast. Let me show you another one that's very pretty. Here we go. This is hibiscus sabdarifa. This is the Jamaican sorrel, also known colloquially in Florida as Florida cranberry, but it's getting more and more to be just called Jamaican sorrel, which I think is kind of unfortunate because It's just another name for it. But as more islanders have moved in, they're like, oh, it's Jamaican sorrel. That's Jamaican sorrel, you know. Or some of the islanders will just call it sorrel. It's not a true sorrel. Somebody said, you know that's not sorrel. Yes, I know. Common names, people. This is why we have hibiscus sabdarifa. But this plant, you know, those calyxes, they're actually, it's a relative of okra. This is in the Malvaceae, the great Malvaceae family, which has all kinds of wonderful things in it. All of our hibiscus, you know, and cotton and okra, and this one, hibiscus sabdarifa. So the calyxes are the red part. That is not actually a fruit. It will make, you know, there'll be a small calyx and it blooms, and then the bloom closes and it starts to make this green little pod inside, like a little green okra pod, but it's more round. And around it, the calyx, that red part, it swells and gets thicker. And as you can see down in the bottom here of the, let's see if I can show you this. Let me get a little closer. You see that cutaway diagram of that calyx? That outer red part is the part that you eat or make drinks out of, or jams, jellies, sauces, rum punch, right there. And then the inside there is just like a little okra pod. And so what you do is you peel that outer part off and you get rid of the inside. You just throw that pod somewhere. And, you know, it's super productive. It's a big shrub. Let me show you a picture, because there's another benefit to this plant that many of the islanders do not seem to know about. Here is my wife a few years ago cutting through. She's harvesting greens for the table. This is a broader leafed variety of hibiscus sabdarifa. And it has delicious, sour, tart leaves. My kids used to call it the sour plant when they were little. And it has leaves that are very good in salads. Now, they are a bit sour to make up a salad all by themselves, but if you splash some of it through, you know, splash it through your salad, you've got a few of these greens mixed in with some other greens from your yard, some lettuce or whatever you have. It gives it almost a delicious kind of Caesar salad flavor right off the bat, because that tartness is so good, really good. I like to just eat them right out there. So there's the calyx, which is for your punches and teas, and you make some faux cranberry relish with it. You know, in places where you can't grow cranberries, so it's too far south to grow cranberries, you can plant this plant, and those calyxes are dead ringers, but they're slightly less bitter than cranberries. So my wife makes a cranberry relish, which you can actually find if you look up Florida cranberry relish or Jamaican sorrel relish on thesurvivalgardener.com. You'll see her whole recipe. And at Thanksgiving, this was a pretty popular thing for us to do. Back this year, I didn't have time to prepare. These have to be planted in the spring. They are a true summer plant, and they are not a perennial. I remember somebody mentioned it being, you know, they can't get it to go perennial. It doesn't go perennial usually. Sometimes it'll live into the next year, but it usually doesn't thrive. It's a short-lived perennial at best, and its first year's production is just when you get the grand production. Makes a lot of leaves, but it's day length sensitive, so it makes a lot of leaves for quite a long time, and then it goes into bloom, and then it starts making calyxes pretty late. In North Florida, it was usually around October that it actually started making calyxes, and its time is short before frost. So usually we had good solid seed development by frost, but it's right on the edge there. Now, this may change if you're further north. It may develop a little earlier. And a really funny thing about this is because of its day length sensitivity, if you said, you know what, I'm just going to grow this thing for fall, and you decided you're going to plant some seeds in August, they'll get like this tall, and then they'll all start blooming. Whereas if you plant them early, you know, these were probably planted in March, you know, they're nice and big, and this is maybe, you know, June, July, maybe. Probably not even July, judging by how green and happy everything is, but maybe July. And, you know, you look at that thing and go, wow, look at all that. That's huge. And it gets bigger. It gets bigger and bigger, and that's probably only really 1 or 2 plants right there. They make a great big shrub. I mean, you could make a privacy screen out of these things if you want to. Now, they are a problem. Yes, I can see you, Raj, but I'm talking. I am in the middle of describing stuff. I will go back and answer questions later. This guy here, well, you can make a great big privacy screen out of it, but if you get a windstorm or something, they get knocked all over, so they get busted up. All right, let's go here. The next one here. So we've got, basically, let me just say this. The Jamaican sorrel is like a fruit and a leaf at the same time. So you can use it in a salad, and you can also use it as a fruit. So before I get to the next one, Raj, let me see what you're saying here. I just see like Raj, hello. Let me see. Raj says, is this live? I have a question. I'm trying to figure out what your question is, bud. What environment is best for this? Probably try, as long as you have something like 130, 160 growing days, you should probably be able to go okay. It is a tropical, but I have seen it growing up into like North Carolina. Raj says, I have trouble growing things here in India. You know, one of the best things that you can do is to find somebody that's in your area. If you ever see anybody that has a really good garden or just seems to know what they're doing, just go and say hi to them and ask them, how did you do this? And even better, if you can bring them a gift when you go. Like, here, I have these seeds. Here, I have this plant. I bought this plant for you because I love your garden and it's so beautiful, and I brought you something. Can I ask you how you grow this? You know? And that way you're already like, I'll be your friend. I brought you something for your garden because I think it's beautiful. I wish I could do that. How did you do it? What are you growing? What really works here? Because I'm having a hard time. I asked some of my neighbors here what to grow, and they said turnips, daikons, and mustard all do well. So guess what I'm growing? I'm growing some other stuff too, but you know, there's a lot of other stuff going on there. Kate says, can you harvest the calyx and the seed at the same time? Generally what happens is the calyxes get a little older and they aren't quite as good by the time they set good seed. Oh, Raj says, yes, but we have a limited seeds. That is a problem. And I faced the same problem when I lived in the Caribbean. It was a hard time getting seeds. And really, it's making a network inside of your country because you have a massive, massive country with a lot of very good gardeners. And there are going to be people that have the seeds. The difficulty is connecting with them. So, you know, there are Indian gardeners that I follow on YouTube. If you can find some of those guys and ask them, where do you get seeds for this and where do you get seeds for this? They're going to be able to help you more than me because I'm in North America. Yeah, and importing seeds is very difficult here too. Amy says, I am on North Carolina, South Carolina coastal line. Results blooming now for me. Oh, very good. All right, let me get to our next amazing vegetable. And our next amazing vegetable, okay, this is a weird one. And I am only bringing it up because it's weird and because a friend of mine recommends it. So let me show you this. You guys seen this thing before? It's like a creepy snake. Or an eel. Or a lamprey. This one here. This one is vegetable number 6. They call it the snake gourd. The snaky gourd. It's a very long, weird member of the cucurbitaceae. Hey, that was a bit of a stretch, but it worked. This is the snake gourd, and if you eat them before they get too ripe and they get, you know, while they're still tender and easy to deal with, Well, you can treat them like a summer squash. So my friend Elizabeth grew these a few miles away from where I am now, and she sent me pictures of just, trellises loaded with them. This is not one of her pictures, but just trellises loaded with them. And she said they gave her so much food, she would definitely grow them again. And she gave me some seeds. So I am going to try this year. This is not anything I've grown before, but it's like a yellow squash, summer squash. If you pick it early, if you let it grow to maturity, you can't use it that way anymore. But it's called the snake gourd, and she highly recommended it for being super productive under less than ideal conditions. And it only really started to end when the hurricanes came and stuff. So she had them for quite a while. So this is one that snuck in as a recommendation from my friend Elizabeth, and this is one I'm going to be trying this year. So you guys will get to maybe grow it along with me. If you get some seeds, we'll all grow it and see how it goes. I always thought it was a bit of a kind of it was a novelty, like a novelty, something from the Walmart garden section. I always kind of thought it was sort of a novelty crop too. Like, okay, I don't know why you would grow that thing except that it looks weird and cool. And she told me that it was delicious, very productive, and highly worth growing. So I'm going to try it because that's what we do. There's so many exciting things in the world to grow. I've been growing vegetables forever, since I was a kid. I'm going to be old and decrepit if the Lord allows me to live that long. And I will still be discovering vegetables to try. Did you ever grow the muscatosy fruit? No, I never heard of a muscatosy fruit. What's that? Oh, they're amazing. It's a member of the... can't remember the family, but there was this guy who talked about it. Muscatosy. I think it's muscatosy fruit. Oh, it's good. Oh, they sound good. Oh, yeah. I think I heard of one of them from one of the old guys at the... Oh, he must be gone. He must be real old now. Ah, yeah. Muscatosy. Probably after one of those Indian tribes, maybe. So, you get older and you gonna keep trying stuff, and it will never end. I don't think it will ever end. So snake gourds this year, boom! And I'm also growing the Egyptian spinach, which is actually just jute fiber. It's fiber and it's a vegetable. It's like Raisin Bran or something. Okay, so let's move on to the next one, because I don't know anything about growing snake gourds. Just that they're cool. This one right here, I do know a good bit about growing. Oh, gosh, there's this guy. I just found this picture online. Kind of a good-looking guy. His hair is not as good as mine. But that right there, yeah, that's me. You guys, I can't pull off any... I can't pull the wool over anybody. I can't pull the jute over your eyes. This is grain amaranth. Grain amaranth. Now, the grain amaranth also has good leaves. There are, varieties of amaranth that are just considered vegetable amaranth because they make a lot of leaf mass and less grain mass. And then there are other amaranths that have been bred as a grain, so they make these great big seed heads. Lots and lots of little itty-bitty seeds, which are kind of a pain to harvest. The trick I found out from watching somebody else do it was take like a trash can lid or a big plate type thing or a bowl, and then put something to tie it around your neck like this, so it hangs in front of your stomach, like maybe right around your waist. And then you grab the amaranth heads and you turn them upside down and you roll them between your fingers, and the amaranth seed heads fall into it. And then you have to blow all the fluff out of it later. It's a bit of trouble to clean it all, but the amaranth has a nice flavor to it as a seed. It's a decent grain, but I find that it's still better generally as a leaf crop than it is as a grain. I like it's a lot of effort for the grain. And when I could grow a root instead, like potatoes, I will do grain amaranth again this year. I actually got some seeds, but I'm, We'll try it again because I just like growing it, but I'll probably be getting more use out of the leaves. And I was very hopeful growing green amaranth that this would be one of those tough, scrappy summer plants that I could grow that had good seeds to it that I could then feed to the chickens. Well, it was a tough, scrappy summer plant that I could grow, but the chickens didn't care about eating the seeds. So, we ate the seeds, and they actually self-seeded in this area for a couple of years and then quit. But that's a pretty cool one. Now, you guys may be more familiar. Right here, this is wild amaranth. You've probably seen this before. Look at this stuff. That is a wild form. This is not the spiny kind. There's a spiny one called spiny pigweed, which is horrible. Very common weed. That's edible too. But once you recognize the amaranth family, like you guys recognize celosia as being part of the amaranth family, there's pretty much nothing toxic in that family. It's going to hurt you. There's a pretty close look to it. This is a very easy green to forage. So if you see a wild amaranth that looks like this, you can take the tender growth and the tender leaves and chop them up. I also recommend cooking them because they are, again, in that high oxalic family, high oxalic acid, but nice hearty green, a good amount of nutrients in it, and filling and common and really, really easy to grow. So you've got greens that will grow through, the cold seasons, like your kales and collards, and you can grow mustards, all these green things that you can grow when there's still freezing weather. But after that, your celosia and amaranth, those guys will carry you right on through, so you can have greens through most of the summers, particularly if you get some successive sowings in. They like disturbed ground. You just break an area up and throw seeds all over it, and they will grow. If you spill seeds while you're walking through your garden beds, they will pop up adventitiously into your beds. They're really scrappy and weedy. This one time, this guy just gave me a small amount of seeds, and I was like, I gotta find a place to plant these. You know what? I just tilled this little area. I'm just going to throw them on it and see what happens. So I just went like this because I thought, I don't know if I'm even want to go home and bag these things. They've been sitting in my hand and they got sweaty, and I'm like carrying them around, and I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to sow them. I'll just throw them over there, and then I feel like I gave them a chance. So I threw them into this corner bed, and nothing happened for a while, and then it rained. And suddenly there were little amaranth all over the place, and they ended up being great big amaranth. They got, up to my chest, like this tall, tons of leaves. We ate those things for a long time. And that was in Grenada, in that really hard, dirt-packed lot with a lot of trash in the soil. Amaranth didn't mind. It did great. And speaking of not minding and doing great, here is another one. This is a dual purpose. These are daikons. Daikon radishes that I grew a few years ago. Nice big daikon radishes. If you have looser soil, sandy soil, these guys really grow like crazy. If you have harder soil, they will often punch holes in it. They're pretty tough, but you may have them popping out of the ground more. It's kind of funny how they'll like stick in the ground, and then the top just starts growing higher out of the ground, like they're pushing against something, and they just push themselves out. But Masanobu Fukuoka of One Straw Revolution, he highly recommended and popularized daikons as one of the cover crops that will break up harder ground, break up hard pan, punch holes in tough soil. There's actually 2 varieties that are sold at a local seed place. I think it's, what is it called? I can't remember what it's called. It's in Atmore, Alabama. They had 2 varieties, Digger and Driller. Digger and Driller. And they're for breaking up the ground. But the leaves are edible, sauteed, boiled. You could eat them in a salad, but they're pretty coarse and kind of fuzzy and not that pleasant to eat that way. It's not going to hurt you, but they're not very pleasant. They're better when they're cooked, wilted a bit. But the roots really shine when they are added to kimchi or just pickled. Really good, or they're just great, just chopped into bits and added to salads. And actually, these were so good when I grew them this year. I grew them in nicely loosened, well-fed soil. I had been working on that soil for a while. I would just go out there and rub the dirt, pull one out and rub the dirt off of it and just eat it in the garden. They were great. Spicy, but not too spicy. And they grew through the cold time of the year, and man, I love those things. So right now you can see actually in my videos, I have 2 long rows of daikons of some variety that I got from the feed store. I don't know if it was digger or driller or whatever, but they are just a great, easy to grow. They are just a big radish, and it's really funny. My time in the Caribbean, there was a lot of incompetence among government employees, particularly some of the agriculture department. They were just like political hires, like this was somebody's friend or something, or they had taken some chintzy course on agriculture at some point and then ended up with this position. As I went to this research station, and there they have rows of daikon radishes, which were given to them and planted by the Chinese, incidentally. So the Chinese have planted these, and I said, you have daikons. And the woman goes, no, they're radishes. I said, daikons are a type of radish. And she goes, no, they're radishes. Like, you're so stupid. And I got this all the time. Like they would treat me like I was totally stupid. I would name the plants as we were going along and ask how they were growing, and they knew absolutely nothing about them. And they would give you wrong answers on almost everything, and then act like it was this huge imposition that you had showed up. It was insane. It was one of those like, how did you... Look, I mean, like a basic amount of research, you would get the common names for various things, or you would know the Latin names, but there was almost none of that. It was just sort of like hearsay, and then it was passed on as if it was gospel, and how dare you question, And I was like, they're just a type of radish. No! Oh my gosh. It was funny. But I actually had some great talks with the Chinese, but there was a bit of a language barrier. So it is what it is. But the daikon radishes, man, they will produce, and they'll give you a lot more mass than your regular radishes. Now, they take longer. They might take you, 50, 60 days compared to regular radishes, which can be producing in 30 days. Sometimes they're like 28 days for salad radishes. Shoop! There's your salad radish. But the daikons, you can get these radishes like that big. And some of them are big like this, and some of them are long and thin, kind of like your icicle radishes, which is very similar. But the daikons, man, that is you want to break the soil up and use it as a cover crop, great. If you want to have cooked greens, great. If you want a really scrappy, easy to grow, cold season vegetable that is both, a root and a green, you can add to a lot of different things, it's great. They're not particularly high calories, so like as a survival crop, it's not awesome, but they will fill you up a bit. But where they really shine is when you ferment them. Grate them, chop them up, mix them with some cabbage, hot peppers, and ginger, and make kimchi out of them. Look up, there's all kinds of different kimchi recipes, and different Korean women will make it in different ways. There are family recipes and that kind of thing. But when it's fermented and it's got a little bit of that zippiness to it, and then it's got that sour vinegary flavor at the same time, man, I love daikons. It's one of the reasons I'm growing so many is because I want kimchi. And I want to make pickles out of them. So let me see. I will find that. I'll find that for you. 1 second. The cranberry relish. Here you go. 1 second. Yes, yeah, cut them raw or put them, Raj says, we eat them raw or cut them in slices, yeah. You know, Brett, it depends. How do they taste next to other radishes? The ones that I had were less zippy than some of the salad radishes, but I have had salad radishes that are pretty sweet and not zippy either. They will self-seed too. Dan says they self-seed well too if you let them go. Yeah, my friend Elizabeth has them reseeding in her garden right now. They do well. They are easy. Readbook says great pickled or grated and mixed with dashi soy sauce and sugar used as a dip for tempura or butter, sauteed meats and vegetables. Yeah, they are so good. Hey, Aunt Karen, nice to have you here. Finally caught a live D to the G. Sean says, drinking a Sierra Nevada Tropical Torpedo IBA. You drinking anything good tonight, brother? Yeah, I'm going to probably have some Knob Creek and a cigar after this stream. How rad is gardening? It's rad-ish. That is the best joke I've ever heard in my life. There's only one type of kimchi. It's about a 1 minute delay. That's right. It's an artifact of the way I have it set up because my internet bandwidth is not very high. Renee says flea beetles destroyed my daikon this year. Yeah, I have had issues with flea beetles. I need to figure out how to control them better. Raj says the zippy is the fun part. Yeah, that's right. Here now only 111 says just finished your Florida survival gardening book. 5 stars, highly recommended. Thank you very much. Wait until the new version of Create Your Own Florida Food Forest comes out. I am working my way through it bit by bit, and it is going to be so good. I'm very happy with it. Exciting. Hi, David. I have not tried the Sierra Nevada Torpedo. I do mind. I don't mind an IPA. I like them. So, run through this again. Let me see if we can do this quick. Ready? Snake beans. Collards. Wait, no, we're going to do it like this. Snake beans. Wait a minute. No, we're going to sing it, boys. And ladies. All right, here we go. Snake beans. And collards. Turnips. Wait, the heck? Where turnips go? Turnips and celosia. Okay, this is not working very well. Jamaican sorrel and my wife with Jamaican sorrel and weird snake gourds. And a man standing in a bunch of amaranth, which leads us on to daikons. That was very awkward. Thank you for tolerating that. I'm glad I don't have a transcriptionist. They would be very confused. What is he doing? Okay. All right, Kyla. Kyla is trying to say the N-word over and over again. Thank you very much. You are banned. That is your answer. Bye, Kyla. Now, let's see. I used to hate IPAs, but now I love them. I started to like more bitter flavors as I've gotten older. I like them more and more. It's like, I don't know why people do this sort of thing. I'm going to see if you will pay attention to me. My daddy never paid attention to me, so I'm going to go get on people's streams. Sorry, little Kyla Mimi. No, you don't get... Oh, I'm giving you attention. Go to your room. Zucchini. Zucchini. You got zucchini. Hey, Callista Bear. Tina sends a $5 super chat. The second of the evening, and she says, very useful, excellent stream. I don't know if I got your voice right, Tina. I actually don't know what you sound like, but it's McGugan. Very useful, excellent stream. That's my guess. But thank you very much, much appreciated. Nematodes. It said nematodes. You better pay attention to me, nematodes. My Nema. Toad! Clean your room, bucko. There's some lobsters in there you gotta go clean up. Take your pills. So, what is happening? That's a very good question, Raj. Amy says, has anyone tried taking cuttings of roselle before the first frost and try to start a new one for next year? Would that work? I don't know. I think there's senescence built into the thing. They really just seem to want to go to seed and then decline and die. Now, the cousin, the false roselle, hibiscus aceticella, I should write that. I'll drop that in here in my delayed chat. I think it's aceticella. That one there will last for multiple years as a perennial, but it's not really strong. And it's not a strong perennial. You know how some things you can just stick them in the ground and they will never ever die? Like a Yaupon holly. It just goes and goes and goes. Even rabbit eye blueberries are like that. Once they go, they just go and they go and they go and they go. And then there are other things that you think, that's a perennial. Tomatoes technically a perennial. But man, it just picks up every problem in the world and then it's gone. Terrible. So no, it's I don't think that if you took cuttings off of it, it would do. You could probably root them, but I think the senescence is built in. But you could try it and find out, But they grow so easily from seed. I'd never really worried about it. Scott says, can citrus take a bit of shade where a fig in the same shade won't fruit at all over 6 years? I need to replace a cursed fig tree. Yeah, it will. Citrus will fruit in the shade. Figs don't. I had figs in the shade and they were just pathetic. They would be green and they were a little leggy and lanky. But I have seen citrus fruiting in a full oak canopy. And one thing here too, I missed earlier and I want to say hello and welcome is Kim. Kim Hill. Welcome. I'm glad to have you here. And thank you for joining this channel as a member. I'm very much appreciated. Members who support this channel, I do giveaways, and sometimes we even have it's about time to do another stream just for members, isn't it? We should do that again. That would be fun. I think we'll do a member stream. Let's do a member stream soon here. I've got to go do some consultation work. I'm going to be traveling to look at a couple of pieces of property for somebody tomorrow, so I don't think I can pull off a stream tomorrow, a member stream, but maybe we could do a member stream on Monday or something. We'll see. It would be fun to do a members only stream again. I haven't done that for a while. Okay, David says, I've been rooting cuttings of a Florida cranberry for 2 years, still going strong. Well, maybe it's regenerating. Like when you take a cutting off an old tree and you start it up again, maybe it helps, That's great. I like to see that sort of thing. Thank you for telling us that. Yes, that's right. Amy says, I think I have that one too, a green one with dark purple flowers and the cranberry hibiscus. There are some of them that have dark red leaves. The cranberry hibiscus, yes, it's called false roselle, hibiscus aceticella, and that's not to be confused with Florida cranberry / Jamaican sorrel, which is hibiscus sabdarifa. Kate says, I need to plant rabbit eye blueberries. Absolutely. I have rabbit eye blueberries growing wild all over the woods here. Fantastic. I need to borrow a chainsaw and go around and clear a bunch of stuff around them just to give them a little more sunshine so we get more. Lauren says, at Scott, my dog has watched too many of your videos. She's stealing the right figs now. Phoebe's a bad influence. That's hilarious. Scott, what are you doing to people's dog? He's dog train. These are my dog training videos. Hey, dog, be destructive. I'm Scott Head. All right. Mark says, random question. Would it work to dig down whole fish around trees instead of making emulsion? Yes, definitely. The problem with the whole fish thing is that sometimes dogs and cats will dig them up. I have found out what was making holes in my garden beds. A couple of dogs wandering around the neighborhood came through the other day, and they're both like wagging their tails like, hey, what's going on? And they just started walking over all the beds. And my kids are like, get out of here. And I'm like, get. I sprayed them with a hose, and they're just like, what? I'm like, get out of here. Like, I throw a stick. I'm not trying to hurt the dog, but like, go. And the dog's like, what? And then you just keep walking across the beds. I went over and smacked the dog on the bottom. I said, get out of my yard. And he's like, oh, somebody's paying attention to me. Like, what do you do with a dog like that? I don't know, but I'm going to need a fence, obviously. But, I mean, they walked through the experimental beds, and I chased them out. Eventually, I had my kids just drag them out to the road. Just drag the dogs out to the road. Maybe they'll go home. And just keep saying, go home, you know. And the dogs went out in the front yard, and they didn't come back that day. I wake up this morning, and I look at it. It's like dawn. And there's a dog, like, stepping its way across the garden beds out in the yard. I'm like, what are you doing? It, like, came back, it's dancing on the beds. And when I looked at it, like this morning, there's holes in the beds, like trampled seedlings all over the place. I'm like, what is a dog doing out there? Maybe he's short on nutrients and he's eating Steve's mix. Whew, I have no idea. And welcome. We got another new member, a greener shade of pale. Welcome. Glad to have you here. Thank you for supporting this channel. Much appreciated. You make Chinese food out of dogs like that. Yes, Indonesian food too. They wanted the bone meal. It's quite possible. I'm like, what the dog? Oh, gosh. Can blueberries take part shade? Yes, they can take it, but they don't produce very well. They'll only make a handful of berries. They'll make a little bit, but it's not nearly as well. They like that sun. Air rifle pellet? Yeah, but we probably can't talk about that on the YouTube. Here now only 111 says, I also enjoy the hibiscus cannabinus, the quinoa, less known though. Yeah, you know, I grew quinoa one year, and I planted it in the backyard in Florida, and when it grew, it looked so much like marijuana, I tore it out because it gave me nerves. I'm like, I will get raided for that thing. It's a dead ringer for marijuana, so I don't grow it now. It's just not worth it. I mean, when the plant ID is not great, hey, you know, the front door gets smashed in first, and later you're like, it's hibiscus cannabinus, and they're like, yeah, we knew it was cannabis. Sean says, that being said, any recommendations on where to find native species? I don't know why it's so hard to find them near where I live. There is a place in Florida called Chiapenis Native Farm and Plant Nursery. They have all kinds of native Florida blueberries, among all kinds of other stuff. They have the coolest, weird native plants, including fruits you've never heard of. Wonderful place. They are located in Melrose, Florida. If you're anywhere near Chiapenis and they're open, call them ahead of time. Find out if they're open. I don't even know if they're still open. A lot of people have disappeared, but they had some great stuff. Now, if you want to find them in the wild, look for areas where there are pines growing and scrub oaks. If you can find those, you can often find some blueberries too. The pines, tall slash pines, longleaf pines, you'll often find them. I did not. This show rocks. Rock dust. Fence time. Yep. Amy says it's the bone meal. My dog went behind me licking the beds when I put it down. I bet they did. That's funny. I did spray the dog with a hose. Didn't work. It just was like, what? Are you giving me a bath? And it moved off a little bit, but it was like, I wanted it to run. I don't know what the deal is. Amy says, yeah, I grow so many hibiscus because I love the hot summers, but they do look like cannabis. Some of them really do. How do I know what cannabis looks like, Jonathan? Are you kidding? You know how many plant names I know? You know how many plant books I've read? You know how many people are like interested in marijuana and are asking me questions and stuff? I'm like, oh my gosh, you can't escape it. Carolyn says Chiappini's Native Farm and Nursery is still open. That's very good. Here and Now Only 111 says Rare Fruit and Vegetable Council of Broward annual sale is this weekend. Not related, but just FYI, if we don't get a hurricane. Well, hopefully not. Callista Bear said, I had Cleome that someone thought was cannabis. He wanted to buy it for his son. That's funny. Dave Taylor told me that some kids came and like bought they bought all of his what was it? It was son of a gun. What is the name of that plant? It's the one that the monks would eat. Chase tree. Chase tree. Looks a lot like, I mean, not that much like it, but they wanted to buy all of it. And yeah, it's crazy. I did not study this in school. I am self-taught. Lauren is out for the night. Thanks for a great stream. Have a wonderful weekend. You too. It is Chiappini's Native Farm and Nursery. I believe that's how you spell it, but I may be wrong because I'm not Italian. Miller's Garden says, hey, David, where can I purchase sorrel seeds? You should be able to buy them from Baker Creek, Southern Exposure Seed Exchange, and a few other places. So, you guys have a great night. Don't worry. God is in control. No need to worry about what happens next. Get out in your garden, plant your gardens, turn the news off. The sun will rise, the sun will set. Sing some hymns. Go listen to some old hymns. I was listening to old hymns, like country gospel hymns on the radio today, and just loving listening to, fiddle players and old hymns. It's good for you. And I will, I've got to do some work this weekend, but I will probably be back on Monday. And we'll see. I've got some friends in town, so I haven't been completely faithful to trying to do this all the time. So, all right, let me see here. I'll answer this last question here. Buyer of Sorts says, how wet should potting soil be for seed germination? Always wet or let it dry, some in between. Leave it about half wet. Like, don't leave it totally soaking, sopping wet. But generally, if you water it once and it's going to dry out for like 3 or 4 days or so, and then you water it again, that's about right. You don't want to flood it so much that it causes the seeds to just sit there and rot and mold. So I will have a, Knob Creek, glass of Knob Creek, a small glass of Knob Creek, and a cigar now. I wish you guys could all join me, but we're all scattered all over the place. But God bless you and keep you, and I pray that you will follow Jesus Christ, know the truth, go enjoy your gardening, don't be afraid, and I'm going to be doing some more filming soon, and we'll do another live stream very soon. Nice to meet you. Those of you who have shown up for the first time, welcome. Thank you to our new members. Thank you very much to the Super Chats, and thank you, all you guys that support this channel as good gardeners. That's excellent. I appreciate it, and it really is excellent to have this community here. So God bless you all. Until next time, may your thumbs always be green.